Right, now, I'll ask Mr Mohi, it's Councillor Graham, sorry, if he could take... Well, it's funny you should say that. They were sitting side by side there for a couple of meetings. And
for 3 days. Yeah, it was agony.
It was agony. So the report from the 16th of June, Maori Committee, my understanding is you were going to help us with a verbal report.
I will give you a verbal report. Firstly, thanks, Chair. Firstly, the 2 meetings, we reported on the 2 meetings, one at Bridge Par. And just for clarification, the meeting at Bridge Par is an ongoing meeting with the people at Mingarora Marae on water. It's I think all councillors, sometimes some councillors turn up and sometimes others do. I think it's an open, they're particularly happy if anyone turns up at all, so that's an ongoing discussion, which I think is coming to a close pretty shortly, I hope. We also reported on the Taiwhenua Hui. Just for Councillor Dick's clarification, they wanted to meet with our chair and our chief executive and some of our staff, but it was an open public meeting so that anyone could attend, and I in particular attended just as a member of the public, didn't speak and just sat at the back. So notification just for Councillor Pipe, I guess it was hard to get notification because it only circulated in particular circles, but it was a public meeting. There was we had a verbal report from David Tipoki, Maori representative from Wairoa Council, who invited us all to go, I think sometime later next month or mid next month, to his meeting in Mahia. Some will certainly go to that and some won't, but that could be quite interesting. We also had a verbal update from Chief Executive on water, and the statutory, there was other on, especially on the Hiratonga Plains, which is of particular interest to the Maori groups. And we had on the statutory advocacy update, we had a really good discussion or an update on traditional fishing rights. I thought that was particularly interesting, and certainly for others who were there it was. Any questions?
Fulsome report,
Councillor Scott. I really would like to add a very important presentation that was made by Esther Amy Bates, that committee on Pātaki, the
yes, that's right.
Digital program that has been launched by this council. It was a very thorough presentation. It's a very thorough tool, and it covers a multitude of layers. It might be quite good for this council to actually see that and have a view on that, and it was certainly of great interest to the Maori committee. So,
thank you, Councillor. Actually, so that's probably appropriate to just advise you that it is going to be on the agenda for the Regional Planning Committee as well, so that all councillors as well as the members of the other members of that committee can.
Yeah, I apologise for saying that was really interesting.
Okay, any further questions? Someone happy to move? Councillor Graham, you happy to move that we accept that verbal report? Seconder, perhaps Councillor Scott as being there. Further discussion, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Monthly work plan looking forward. Well, before we go there, do you need any other staff here, or are you?
Possibly. There's normally a few questions for Mr Maxwell, so if there's not going to be, you do, so yeah, probably appropriate that he's here for that.
Well, let's get him down. Chairman's monthly report is still on the cycler style, whatever they call it, being carved out of stone by Diane Wisely upstairs. So maybe we go to minor items and deal with them in the next few minutes. So let's go first of all to the whitebait stand of Councillor Bevans.
No such luck, I don't have a stand. I'm just conscious of the fact that the whitebait season starts on the 15th of August, which is 6 weeks away. We faced a barrage of criticisms of our weed management last year, if you recall, with it getting tracked around people's stands and them spending hours and hours trying to clear it away. So I just want to remind staff, Mike in particular, that it's coming up, and it was agreed that we would organise a program of weed management in those rivers that would work around the season. So I'm conscious of the fact that that needs to be in place, and I would just want to ask Mike if appropriate arrangements have been made.
Well, appropriate arrangements were in place before that. We have to control the weed. We are unable to control it. Well, we have a slot in December, and we need to make sure that we do it as late as possible prior to that, because by the end of the whitebait season, it is a significant issue for us. So, I mean, yes.
It's a minor item. Can you just come back to us here?
Yeah,
please?
I will certainly talk to you about it.
I'm just conscious of the fact that, like, the whitebait season finishes at the end of November, so any time in December is fine, and my suggestion would be that you stay out of their way, anything after, say, the beginning of August.
Particularly around the mouth of the Tukitook River, is that correct? Done, Councillor.
Yes, this harks back to the report that we got from HBRC at our last HBRC meeting, where everybody will recall that the chair, Andy Scott, made some comments about the applicability of DIN at 0.8 to water users signed up to the RWSS scheme. They surprised me. I suspect a number of us were surprised, and I note that the conversation that we had during that meeting was quoted verbatim to the Board of Inquiry. I'm interested in getting a paper from staff on what the rules are for water users so that we can understand how they differ from those people who are not water users and signed up to the RWSS in that catchment.
Pending. Thank you. Councillor Barker, tomato mushrooms.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I see from public comment that the Hawke's Bay Regional Council is going to prosecute tomato mushrooms. I have said to this council before, and I repeat it, that I am well aware of the distinction between governance and enforcement, and I do not believe governors should be involved in the enforcement process. But it has raised a significant amount of public debate, and I would like the council officers to provide to council a report on the matter at the next council, and in particular I would like for them to outline their chosen approach to this, and I do so because I'm mindful that for the Central Hawke's Bay District Council, when there are issues over pollution of the Tukitoki River, council and council officers were at pains to point out that they preferred a process of working with the regional council.
Mr Chairman, we were briefed on this.
Not really. Well, the request is for further briefing, and I think that's
Can
fair
I
at
just,
this time.
excuse me, am I entitled to finish my presentation or
Yeah,
not?
overall point of order. Thank you, Councillor Barker.
And I would like to, for the council officers to outline why they have chosen to prosecute on this matter, and what efforts they have made to work with the private landowner on this in a way which is consistent with the efforts that have been made with the Central Hawke's Bay Council, because I do not wish it to be seen that the regional council is treating its difficulties with councils differently from that of the private sector. The second thing I'd like to see in this is that there is general rule that where existing landowners have been there for quite some time, they have rights, and that normally these are rights that they carry forward, existing landowner occupier rights. And it seems to me this is one of the key issues for the public discussion, which is if tomato mushrooms has been there a long time and people have crept closer to it, should the existing landowners accept that that's the that tomato mushrooms is there, and as a consequence of this there will be some effects, or does tomato mushrooms have to change its behaviour because people in housing have moved closer to them? I think those are two quite important issues, and of course there'll be other issues as well, but I would look forward to a full and detailed briefing from officers at a subsequent meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Belford, Otani sewage consents?
Yes, I'm just aware
That you haven't got your microphone on.
that I've put the microphone on, that we're somewhere approaching a point where I believe resource consents have to be applied for their discharges, and there seems to be some concern as to whether these would be publicly notified or exactly what the status of all this is, and so I was just hoping for a report at some point on the matter.
Thank you. And regional research centres.
Yes, councillors might be aware that as part of the government's budget, they proposed a $25 million fund for regional research centers in the primary sector arena. A number of interested parties met with Mr. Adey and Nathan Heath a couple of days ago, and the purpose was more broadly to discuss the proposal that had been brought forward in the LTP process for a future farming initiative, but the direction of that conversation the other day came to center on this particular opportunity that certainly other regions will avidly pursue. And I just wanted to, I think there was some consensus at that discussion that this is something we should be looking at. I just wanted to give that a bit more official standing by putting an action item forward that in fact we have some sort of working party or something that looks into this as a opportunity for this region to pursue working with some of the folks in the private sector who are interested in doing so, because a requirement of this fund is that such a center would need to be a private entity. It's not the council itself, and so we would need to have some public-private partnership, if you will, between stakeholders here and this council to pursue that kind of funding successfully. So I'd just like to get it, some kind of action item recorded here that we are going to, in fact, explore that opportunity for the region.
Thank you. Okay. Karamu environmentalists, Councillor Scott.
Leanne to put up some photos for you, Mr. Chairman. On Saturday, there was a council planting day on the Karamu, and I'd just like to introduce you to some of the environmentalists who were there. If you could just flick through the photos. As you can see, they were fairly young and dedicated. So, Mr. Chairman, we put in 2,500 plants in that particular. It's an old rubbish dumping area, and it's really is being turned into a very attractive environment. And I did ask of one of the young parents of that little boy, asked of all of them actually, what motivated them to be there, and their reply was, our children need to understand if we're going to make a difference to the environment, we actually need to get out there and do it ourselves, and I want them to learn to be involved from as young as possible. So there they were, learning how to get on and make a difference to the environment. Would like to comment that those know how to do it, make a difference to the environment councillors. Councillor Pike was there. I'd like to thank him. I'd like to thank all the staff who were there, quite a few of those, and the staff families who turned out to give a hand. The community, as you can see, and their families, these were all, some of them are Hastings, some of them were Hawke's Bay people. The kids in green were the family of the contractor, and he drags them around and makes them work like that because he thinks they should also learn, have a love environment, and they're as enthusiastic about it as he was. Members from the Karapatiki Marae and the Youth Council. So it was a pretty good and impressive turnout of people who were making a difference to the place. So ask the CEO to congratulate the staff for such a good session and pass on our thanks.
Thank you. Very nice photos. Right, well, let's have 10 minutes for morning tea, and then we'll come back to, I see Mr. Mike Reid is here which is item 15. So he'll be on in 10 minutes' time. And morning and welcome.